Okay, we're live, everyone. Hello to our friends. Thank you so much for bearing with us and giving us a little bit of time to get ourselves here and present with you. Thank you so much for joining our Facebook Live today. We have a wonderful conversation that we are ready to discuss, and we hope that some of you are able to join us on Facebook Live to share your thoughts and opinions about the Graduates Playbook, the skills that every 12th grader should have. My name is Kamilah Bywaters. I'm running for the Board of School Trustees for District E. And I think this is a great opportunity for the community to be able to get to know who I am and to also be able to ask questions and dialogue about some of the most important topics in education. At this time, I'll pass it over to my co-host so he can introduce himself. And then if anybody else, Shaquilla, if you want to introduce yourself, you can as well.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully you had a Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, really happy holidays because this is the holiday season. This first day of Kwanzaa, your mojo, which is community and unity. And I'm having unity tonight by being with my family and being with you all out there. This topic that Sister Kamilah came up with that is so important to our future, but just as important as it is to our future, it's important to our present day. Because in order to have a future, you have to plan for it and prepare for it now. And we often say that children are our most prized thing that we can have. Well, does our interest in education make it seem like the children are that important to us? Especially in the Clark County School District that perennially has a failure rate of below 50% as far as its overall standings of all school districts in the nation. Seldom are we into the 40% range. Usually, we are even lower than Mississippi and Louisiana. Now, those of you who are from Mississippi and Louisiana, I'm not trying to say nothing bad about you because you're kicking our butt in education right now. But historically, those have been some of the two lowest funded districts and also with some of the lowest positive outcomes for students in the education system. But somehow, Nevada has found a way to elevate those two states by having a lower success rates in its district grading. So one of the things that we wanted to know is we wanted to know from you all. We want to reimagine school. Schools really hasn't changed since, it hasn't changed since I was in school, and I'm in my 60s. And when I went to school, it really hadn't changed much since my mother had gone to school, and she went to school back in the 40s. So now we're in the 21st century. And for the most part, the way that we educate our children and what we educate our children with, other than a little bit of whiteboards here and there and Google tablets, it's pretty much the same. Is that what's working for our children? And if not, how can we reimagine it to provide for the best education presently for our children today to create the best outcomes for them later? And remember, those are the ones that's going to be taking care of you when you're older. Are you confident that they're going to be equipped with what they need, not only to provide for themselves, but also to take care of you in your senior years? Sister Kamilah?
Yeah, I think you definitely expressed some really good sentiments around what education should look like. What we really do need to reimagine what education looks like because we've been doing it the same way for decades, and at least in our state, we're not getting the best results that we could get. Shaquilla, did you want to introduce yourself or say anything before we get started?
My name is Shaquilla Eilitz. I've been here in Vegas for 6 years, and I've been also working as an employee for the Clark County School District for 6 years as well. So around almost around the same time that I've been here.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. I think it's always good to have the teacher's perspective. I mean, there's a lot of conversations happening without teachers who really get to see hands-on, like where our students are and have an opportunity to look at their preparedness when they're entering into the field. I do want to say congratulations to teachers. I see that contract finally came through. Thank you. Okay. All right now. So, and I really want to say that I'm extremely happy for just the dedication of our teachers and the advocacy that they put out there to demand what they wanted. I really appreciate that. I look forward to hopefully, not everyone's about a strike, but I'm down for a good strike, especially if you need, you got to get in there. And I really hope that the laws can be changed so that teachers can strike. Because I know in other places, teachers strike all the time. And I'm just really happy that the teachers got what they wanted. Teachers deserve to get paid. They work far more hours than most people work in a week. So thank you for just pressing through and getting that historic pay raise that you all deserve. Yeah.
Now, Sister Kamilah, you said that you're glad that they got what they wanted. Now, when I talk to teachers, they tell me this is what they need. And so finally, teachers have got what they needed. So that is a step forward to take them to where they need to be. Now we can look at some of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs of self-actualization. Now that they got past that basic foundational need, how can they get some of those other things that they want? So as much as I am happy that teachers have received the bare minimum, I think you got to keep pushing. You wouldn't have gotten this if you wouldn't have pushed for it. And now that you're organized, don't stop pushing, because in order for us to have the conversation that we're having today about reimagining schools, teachers are a critical component of that. As a matter of fact, teachers are the foundation of that. And so we need to have our teachers not just sustaining themselves, but we need to have our teachers thriving so that when they come to school, they're not worried about the bills. They're not worried about, oh my goodness, I'm going to be late because my car is 20 years old and it broke down once again. And, those types of things. We give our children free lunch in a large percentage of the schools here in the Clark County School District. But what I found is, from me being a person who gives food to the needy, a lot of the folks that we're giving food to has been teachers. And it's not that I mind, because the food is to go to who it needs, but the fact that teachers got paid so little that they needed external help just to eat. That's a sad testament on how we look after our teachers, who are supposed to be looking after our most prized thing, which is our children.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point. And it's important that we take care of our teachers, because like you mentioned, they are one of they are the key to educating our children and to ensuring that our students, our 12th graders, we're specifically talking about 12th graders today, being able to ensure that they have the skills that they need to be successful in life. And I know specifically, hey, we have Jerry, thank you for joining us today. And you're welcome to jump into the conversation whenever you would like to. And I know in the research that I've been doing about education, there is a controversy around the purpose of education and what a well-rounded 12th grader should look like, or the skills that they should have. And even scholars say, we don't know. There's not a robust conversation that people can agree on to say, hey, this is how our students should be prepared. So if we don't have a map, then it's kind of like everyone just does what they think is best according to their state, according to their specific school. And then we have children who are in different places. For me, I think what's important is that in this reimagining education, that it's a conversation that, one, not only includes students, but also includes teachers. And it's also important just to teach students according to the century that we're in as well. Like, we're in 2023 now. My little children are capable of technology on a whole nother level at this time and age. And I see that when I go and sub once in a while in the schools, technology has taken over. So I think it is important that we look at new and innovative ways to bring education to students, and then also understand the different ways that students are best able to learn. And that becomes a challenge, because when you have a class of 20, 25 kids and each child learns differently, that becomes a difficult task to try to meet everyone's need. So it's really, it's like I always say, education is complex. It is really complex. Like I always say. I know one skill that I think that students need, hands down, is you have to have the basic foundation. You have to know how to read. That basic. And we have children who graduate without knowing how to read. And that's something that we really have to address. Mr. Rodney?
So first of all, I want to welcome Mr. Jerry Smith here, because Jerry Smith came to the gathering and he's a person that uses Chat GPT. And from the conversation we had about this show, he's actually one that did most of the work in putting in the questions, the foundational questions into Chat GPT to come up with the answers. So I'm glad he was able to join us today. So he's going to be sort of our subject matter expert on the findings from Chat GPT. And from that, I spoke to him and I came up with some other questions that I ran by him and that I also input in Chat GPT. And there's somebody else, I hope she'll join us. She said that she would help because I didn't get a chance to put all of those questions in to come up with some answers. And first of all, I want people to know that I'm not saying that Chat GPT is the be all end all. But what I am saying is that it is artificial intelligence and it is the future that's here now. And I wanted to get an idea of what it would tell us that some of the best things are. For ultimately, it's up to humans to make these decisions, but it's okay to have a little assistance from something that we've programmed to deal with just mass sums of information, and for it to be able to break it down into bite-sized bits for us to digest. So before we go on, I think we do need to make some, we talked about the school, the teachers getting their raise. Also, some people are not here tonight because they're celebrating the first day of Kwanzaa, and that's at the West Las Vegas Library Theater, and it goes on until 8 o'clock. That's 2,000 you military types. And and that's a very important thing. But because this conversation is so important, it just seemed that it would be better for us to be here to have this conversation, because maybe schools should incorporate Kwanzaa into their cultural competency. Maybe that would be something that young people of a certain demographic would identify with more. Doesn't mean it has to be the only thing, but it could be a thing. And what we're looking for are things that can move us from where we are, because we seem to be on a slippery slope backwards. And I'm one who's open to trying new things. I'm one old dog that can be taught new tricks, but I'm waiting for someone to let me know what are those new tricks. But before we even get to what are the new tricks, it's really key to know what should children who are in high school today and those who are yet to get into high school, what should the schools be equipped with to teach them so that when they graduate 12th grade, they can be not only productive citizens, which is hugely important. Citizenship is important in a democracy, but also so that they can have gainful employment to provide for themselves in these emerging economies. That does not mean that some of the economies that we have now won't exist, but we do know that they're changing. So, Sister Kamilah, did you have any other, or did anyone else have any other announcements before we delve into what should a 12th grader look like?
Yeah. Any announcements? No? Okay.
Wally, did you have something?
Yes, I agree with everything you and Ms. Camilla has said, but we have to also remember we have to incorporate the community, right? So the community is the parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. Community is also the school community, not just the teachers, but the staff. That's the office managers, the registrar, the custodial service, because we all work as a unit. So if there's one of us missing, then the whole body is going to be affected. And so when I'm talking about the community as a whole, we have to be more cognizant of how we include them and how we advocate for ourselves to be in. I remember, if my mom ain't come to school for nothing else, she was going to come to school to defend me, right? So I think that we have to have more of that and have more conversations and open up the schools. We do have parent teachers nights. We do have, this past October, we have trunk or treat. So we do have events that encourage families and communities to come out, but we need more of that, right? We need the community to be knowledgeable about what the policies are, what's allowed, what's not allowed. We need them to know their rights. And I know we have Faces in some school, which is an organization within the CCSD that helps to reach out to parents, but we just need more engagement, which is something that we also talked about last week. The more engagement we have from the community, the more involved we will have the students in their own education and have them advocating for their own rights. So it's not just teachers, right? We're just one element of the equation. We need a whole thing. We need everybody to be involved.
Absolutely. Thank you for highlighting that. It takes all of us for sure. Thank you.
One of the questions, and we'll get to this later, is how do we get parents more involved in their children's education? And so we'll get to that later because that's a huge issue. I hear it from the parents, I hear it from the administrators, I hear it from the teachers, even some children want to know why isn't their mommy and daddy or mom or dad at their schools supporting them? So that is a huge question. I didn't get a chance to put it into Chat GPT before we came on the show. Hopefully in between dialogues, I'll put that in there on just some suggestions on how to get parents more involved, because all of those things that Wally said are true. But unfortunately, one of the areas that seems to be a struggle in public schools and public non-charter schools and public non-academy schools and public non-magnet schools, there seems to be a deficit of parental involvement, and it shows in the academic success as well as the graduation rate of those students. So, Sister Kamilah, if nobody else has any announcements, let's dive into the subject of what should a 12th grader look like.
For sure. So in my research, I found a lot of what came up is some of the scholarship around the purpose of education and what students should be prepared for. It talks a lot about preparing students when they get done with school to be able to be, so the democratization of education, for students to be able to be a part of democracy when they get out of school. And that a lot of the work and the scholarship was attributed to John Dewey. They talked a lot about his perspective on democracy of education. But I think one thing that's interesting for me is that we do not have a lot of civics education for students. And I know Rodney was mentioning earlier in our pre-conversation that students are lagging behind. They don't understand they don't understand the basic structure of our state, of our local governments, of our federal government, or understanding the importance of voting and how do you vote, where do you sign up? And for me, there is a lack of civic engagement. I personally believe it's there's a purpose for that. Because if we don't, you would think that this would be a part of the curriculum and it would be really ingrained in our curriculum because our voice is important in a lot of our elections and voting. So for me, it's the educational system has been designed in a certain way so that we don't maximize all of its fullest potential because you don't want to educate the people who can, advocate for themselves or be able to understand when, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Basically educating people to the point where now they're becoming the leaders, right? And I think that it shows definitely in our educational system this lack of civic engagement. And I know Dr. Cosgrove, and we've talked about this with her, when her students come to college and they're starting out their freshman year, they're eager to learn about politics, learn about how our system is structured and what they can do to be leaders in this space. I don't know, Rodney, if you had something you wanted to add there, but I really do think that it is important that when 12th graders graduate, that they understand how they can serve their communities and what that looks like voting. Who are you voting for? What elections are coming up? Because your voice matters. It's in a lot of our races, like judges. Judges are very important. And oh, I'm getting feedback. Okay. Yeah, I am gonna probably get some feedback because they have the noise on over there. But I'm gonna put my earphones in a second. Yeah, I think I pretty much said my thought on that part.
So it's interesting that you talked about that we started out talking about politics. And actually, I think it wasn't what I planned on doing, but it's kind of good because politics is we're a democracy. Well, we're a democratic republic with a constitution to be technical about it, but ultimately we are a democracy. And one of the reasons why there were few democracies until us and why democracies are so hard to maintain is because you must have an educated electorate. And one of the things that Jerry is talking about and has been talking about for some time is patriotism. And we're seeing how a misunderstanding of patriotism, how a lot of mis and disinformation associated with patriotism is really doing harm to our country right now. So then that begs the question, when our children are going through school, are they learning about the history of our form of government? Are they learning how to actively participate in the body politics? I'm glad that you mentioned Dr. Cosgrove because when I talk to teachers out at the community college, the College of Southern Nevada, excuse me, as well as the administrators there, one of the things that they've told me is that students from the CCSD are less prepared than students that they receive from out of state or other school districts within the state. That's troubling since the largest percentage of the students are from the Clark County School District. And one of the questions I asked them is, does the community college, the university system, as well as the K through 12 leaders get together to discuss it? So in other words, do the college give feedback to the K through 12 that their students are coming to them deficient for community college? Because if they're coming deficient to community college, in order for them to be successful, that means that they need some type of additional training. Well, the whole idea of going to school, K through 12, should be, I would think, to prepare them either for employment, trade school, or further academic education. And what I'm being told by the college and university systems is that the Clark County School District is not preparing students for academic education. And when I talk to students one-on-one, I cannot tell you how many people who were high school graduates and did not have a clue as to the various levels of government that we have. So, in other words, if I said Congress, they might say, which Congress? If I mentioned state senator, they might say Harry Reid. Well, Harry Reid is a United States senator, not a state senator. If I say city council, they think legislature. If I say legislature, they think of county commission. So these are very basic skill sets in order to be a citizen in this country that our children are graduating deficient in. And I believe that problem has manifested itself in a lot of the public discourse and even violence that we're seeing today. Miseducation or miseducation from misinformation, even worse, disinformation, and an overall lack of knowledge of these systems.
Yeah. And I do want to shout out really quick our friends who are on Facebook who are joining in the chat. And one of my really good friends and colleagues, Jessica, she said that in response to our conversation about civic education, that when we don't teach it, basically advocacy would not be seen as a nuisance in the system. My friend Jessica is an advocate for her child. And Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong on Facebook Live. You can type it in if I say anything incorrect. But when she's advocating for her child, her advocacy is seen as problematic. She's a nuisance. She's complaining, and I can relate to that. So basically the point that she was making, if there was more, if we were, if this was really a part of our education, then it wouldn't be seen as a nuisance. And then another thing that's really interesting to me, that the very people who teach you, there's some maybe in higher education or some spaces, they'll teach you to advocate as long as you don't advocate towards something that has to do with them. Speak for yourself, speak up for yourself, but not against our company. And then I wanted to really quick, shout out Sarah. Sarah is a U.S. government teacher. She teaches U.S. history, government, and a senior guidance teacher. And I do just want to make note that teachers, we know that you all, many of you, are doing the best that you can. You're great. You're phenomenal. So I don't want this to be seen as we're criticizing teachers. But again, I want us to look at reimagining education, right? And I did ask Sarah online if how long they take these classes. I asked if U.S. history, government were a full semester. And she said that government is one semester. Okay, I didn't get the rest of them, Sarah. But what she did say is that they have to teach what they're given by the district, and there's a lack of accountability, and that it's pretty much okay. She said there's a lack of accountability we are allowed to place on our students according to the district is non-existent. And I think that's exactly why it is so important to reimagine reimagine education, because we have teachers who this is their education. They've been to school to, get these skills in to teach our students at bachelor's, master's, and PhD level. And then when you're kind of deadlocked by your standards, you're deadlocked by your administration to only use a certain type of curricula, then, hey, we can find ourselves in these situations where where teachers are able to say, you know what, this may not be the best choice of learning for our students. Shaquilla, I saw that you had your hand up.
Yes, I wanted to comment on some of the skills that the students should have, especially 12th graders. And going back to the Chat GPT, out of the 16 skills it says that a 12th grader should have, civics is not one of them. I don't see civics anywhere on there. And then when you look at cultural awareness and diversity, that's number 11. Now, I'm not sure if these are in a list of priorities, but when you talk about civic engagement, understanding that and being able to advocate on multiple levels, this computer program is not even saying that's important, right? And so you can imagine that the people who are in charge don't want students to, the majority of students to be civically aware, because that causes problems for some folks. They don't want us to advocate for our children. They don't want our children to advocate for themselves. And so when you talk about maybe some parents are seen as so-called troublemakers when they advocate for their students and take accountability for what they learn in the classroom, we do have a lot of discretion in the classroom, right? The standards are not perfect, but we have some wiggle room. So it's incumbent upon us to take those opportunities to, use our how you say, use our interpretation of the standards sometimes. Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission.
Mhm.
And so, a lot of people, they like, they got their jobs to worry about. I understand that, but we're looking at our future.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to make sacrifices. I'm not saying go out there and get yourself your employment terminated, but you have some wiggle room, right?
Yeah.
You have some opportunity to do what's right. And so, I do think it depends on the individual teacher too, what they choose to do.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought up the chat GPT because I'm looking at it now. And like you said, Shaquilla, I'm looking at the command that it was asked. So it's asking about jobs or industry. Now, chat GPT has some equity issues. I love chat GPT, and sometimes I ask it things that I know to see if it's going to be accurate. And it is. And sometimes I'm like, hey, that was incorrect. And they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. Well, I was like, well, I should be chat GPT then. But anywho, when I'm looking at what came up on chat GPT, they're tech, it's all technology. So that's, to me, that's like, okay, this is what the people, whoever they are up there, this is what they're imagining for students. You need to be ready to not be able to work at, for instance, a lot of our restaurants are going tech. I know in some other countries, they actually have the robots being the waiter and the waitresses. Now, and then there's some places where you don't even speak to anyone now. You just kind of punch in your orders at the computer, which those are taking away jobs from people. So this kind of gives us an indication of where society is continuing to grow, because I'm looking at some of the, a lot of this stuff is technology. I'm looking at, according to Chat GPT, it says that students need to be ready to engage in green technology and sustainability, cybersecurity, e-commerce, and logistics. And we know that during the pandemic, there was a wave of entrepreneurs who started doing things online. Now, if you don't have basic skills, I mean, you can get away with, the pecking typing. I know when I was in school, I learned to type, but it can be a hindrance to, if you're going to have a full online job, unless there's someone out there who can really type quick, then hey, good for you. But during that pandemic, a lot of people shifted from being in person at their jobs to online and created a lot of different types of jobs online. And if you don't have the skills to be able to do the basic things on the computer, you wouldn't be able to accommodate that for your livelihood. So I do think that it is important that, just based off of what this chat GPT is saying, it's letting us know where the mindset is about children. Yes, Jerry?
Take yourself off of mute, Jerry.
All right, there we go. So the research that I did was that ChatGPT, OpenAI, went from 2021 back. And when I was on there the other night, the other day when Rodney and I were talking, it went, they are updated to 2022, but that's for Google Bard. But anyway, what it does is that all information that it can find, then it will give you a short, brief synopsis on all the information that's out there that it can find. So it isn't that chat is too heavy into tech. It is what it is finding and it's giving you back. So it's not really an opinion or a panacea, but that's how it derives the responses that it got there. And one of the things I was thinking was that school has a purpose, and in 1918, when they made it compulsory for all of America, and they're going to pay for it through taxes and make it free, then the reading, writing, arithmetic, and some languages, those were things that school was designed to do. So I from what I'm hearing this evening is that we're wanting the full person perhaps to graduate 12th grade and to be well-rounded in all of these, where we can focus on some basic fundamentals, but not trying to create, and that's to me what will happen when the school district would be responsible for that. And I do take into account that there are a lot of parents who are high school dropouts, or they didn't do well in school themselves. And for the future, then I think we have to add in some other elements. When I look at that, everything, anything that a child or adult wants to know about, I ask Miss Google myself, and they can still find that. So how much are we really putting on the school and giving it the responsibility to, again, turn out the person, the adult who is ready to function 100% in America just on the 12th grade? Given the basic fundamentals, I would suggest us focusing on that. Some of the soft skills, as you're saying, civics, some other things that goes along with that. But the major basic fundamentals is being able to build upon the reading, writing, arithmetic, and all the other soft skills and interaction with civic engagements and voting and all those things as well, but not relying on the teachers and or the school system itself. One thing I tell my granddaughter, she's like 11, I think she's a teenager already, is she says she doesn't have any homework. And I'm saying that, well, if you want Nevada school system to limit as to how smart you should be, then you're right. The school doesn't give you any homework. You have to self-educate. And I'm thinking that we start advocating self-education, that if a 12th grader, if he goes through, matriculates through 12th grade, I think they can start looking at personal development, self-improvement, and or in addition, self-education, and not so much on the school turn out this perfect robotic Black person ready to kick some butt.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with everything that you were saying, Mr. Jerry. And that's why like critical thinking and self-education is so important, because all of the answers are not going to be given to you when you get out of school. And I am seeing young people struggle with that critical thinking. And that I'm seeing that struggle, and it is absolutely something that we have to practice not only at school, but in our families, in our community. Like if there's a problem, okay, how do we get to the solution? Where do you go if you have a problem? Where do you go if you're told no from one job? That doesn't mean you quit. You keep going. So I am seeing that as one of the limits. Well, I don't know if I want to say limits, but there's a lack of critical thinking that 12th graders need to have to be prepared for the world. And that self-education is absolutely so important, because you have to be able to say, okay, I need some support here. Where do I go to get it? And that is absolutely so important. So thank you for bringing that up. Shaquilla, did you have something to say?
I agree 100% with the critical thinking skills, and also what Mr. Jerry said as far as outside education. Everybody's not as fortunate as I to have grown up in New York City, where you know they taught you a lot of learning on the streets, and you got some more learning at home. And everybody's family dynamic is different, right? So we got to try to provide for our students some of the deficits that they may have outside of school. It's not easy, but we know that, like Ronnie has said before, we know that there are some problems that are always going to exist, right? But what are the solutions, right? We know, our students may be lacking critical thinking, they may be lacking cultural awareness, they may be lacking literacy, but this is our community, right? This is our Black community that we want to we want to help them to edify. So we have to try to find these creative solutions, because we know, like Ronnie said, they're not going to be getting it some places. Some places they are going to be getting it because they have strong families, they have that natural intelligence. Some students got to build that, right? So we have to find some workaround, so we don't leave anybody behind. Only those who choose to be left behind.
Yeah.
So for those who are not familiar with a report that comes out on a fairly recent basis called the report, please look that up, because it gives a fairly comprehensive evaluation of the education process, and especially for African American children. And it comes out with pretty much the same things most of the time. So here's an interesting statistic. Black children that attend a school district with 20% or less Black children in it tend to perform on par or above their white counterparts. Black students who attend school districts with 20% or less of Black children tend to fare on par or exceed their white counterparts. When I heard that, I think like Arsenio Hall in his old show said things that make you go, why is that? Well, the first thing that came to mind was it blew out of the water the concept that white teachers cannot teach Black children. It also threw out the concept that our Black children simply cannot learn. And they cannot learn with the current teaching methods. Because not only did these children do as well as their white contemporaries, but they usually exceeded them. But what I wanted to do was, since we talked so much about ChatGPT, in the query for ChatGPT, in preparing our children for future sustainability, in other words, how to be able to get employment, it talked about these industries that are relevant today, but also industries that will be relevant in the future. And that in order for our children to be able to participate in these industries, then that established what courses, what skill sets would they need, and then what should the curriculum be. So I'm going to read brief. I'm not going to get into all of the details of it, and hopefully we'll be able to post it in the chat, which I have no idea how to do. But so for those of you, especially in Facebook, I'm going to read over. It says, what are some of the top industries of the future? And this is thanks to Mr. Jerry Smith. And it says, number one, and I don't know if this is in particular order, but the number one it mentioned was artificial intelligence and machine learning. Number two was renewable energy. Number three was biotechnology and life sciences. Number four was green technology and sustainability. Number five was cybersecurity. Number six was e-commerce and logistics. Number seven, space exploration and aerospace. Number eight, virtual reality, as well as augmented reality. Remember, these are industries that are currently thriving and that need workers, and industries of the future. Number nine, 5G technology. Number 10, clean water and water management. Number 11, electric and autonomous vehicles. Number 12, robotics and automation. Number 13, something that will make you all smile, educational technologies. Number 14, something that may not make you smile, quantum computing. So those were the industries, the top industries of today that are expected to be in the future, and the industries that will be growing and needing people employed in it in the future. And so from that is how the other queries came about. So if these are the industries that are present today and in the future. Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, so if we continue to talk in the direction that the discussions were going earlier, then the kids that are going to need the skills for all of what Rodney just read off, I think they'll continue to lag behind when we are looking at what we want the school system to teach our kids, and they don't focus on this or talk about these areas that Rodney ticked off, and there are obviously quite a few more. But I think as a Black community, oftentimes we don't know because we're not a part of the community that is training their kids through their relatives owning businesses that are in those industries, and they have access to it their entire lives. So it's just second nature for them to do it. While we tend to go more on social justice and dignity or dignity and self-esteem and a lot of those things. Those are important. Don't misunderstand or misinterpret what I'm saying. But it's that if we want them to be ready for work, then again, I go to self-education, personal development, self-improvement, and encourage them to do that on their own. But you need to get your job, get a good paying job. And if we're going to prepare you, then it should be something in these areas and or more than just one thing in these areas, finding something that you can cross-pollinate into other areas as well. Then they're going to be left, some are going to be left behind. A lot of them going to be left behind when we just look on and talk about the deficiencies of the school system and how it's not fair and all those things.
Yeah, I do want to really quick shout out some people who are engaging on Facebook. Pastor Kelsey West, thank you for joining and engaging on Facebook. Some of the things that Pastor West said, his baseball coach was his government teacher in high school, and he made sure that they learned government throughout their 4 years and not just for a year. Pastor West also said that critical thinking is a major skill set, and that growing up in Michigan, he had some amazing white teachers to complement his amazing Black principals. Thank you, Pastor West, for joining in and engaging with us. And then also, I want to say my cousin April said that at the Suncoast, there are robots in the cafe. And then Cherie, thank you for joining us today. And she remembers in school taking history and science. Thank you, Cherie, for joining us.
So all of those courses, so there's a segment of society that says the only thing that schools should teach is reading, writing, and arithmetic. Notice I said arithmetic. That's what they say. Now, maybe in 1918, that was sufficient. But we're in 2023, just about to creep our way into 2024. And from the jobs that I just ticked off, thanks to Jerry, of future. Now, remember, this list is not all inclusive. For example, automobile technology. Notice I didn't say auto mechanics. I said automobile technology. My car is probably almost as advanced, or might even be more advanced than the first space capsule that went into outer space. As a matter of fact, I'm sure my car has a lot more computing power than the first space capsule that went into outer space. When I grew up, cars were carbureted. Now they're fuel injected. There is a difference. We have to keep up with the times. It doesn't mean to throw out everything else, but what it does mean is that we should be aware, associated with, and have some knowledge of, if we're not just going to get jobs, But see, when I was in service and my old car broke down because all I got was $210 a payday, I could go and fix it because all I needed was a few wrenches and a screwdriver, occasionally a hammer. Well, now you're going to have to get out a laptop and plug it into your car like we do aircraft, and then let the car tell you what's wrong with it. And if you have certain vehicles, it will even order the parts for you. So we have to, so this is a emerging skill set based off of an old skill set. So an old shade tree mechanic might have been great for back in the day, but not for future automobile technology. I was an aircraft mechanic on legacy aircraft, but before I got out of service, I worked on some of the most advanced aircraft that the world has ever seen, and some of them the world still hasn't seen yet. And it was a huge difference from working on an old F4 to working on an F-22 or F-117 or F-35, and the list continues. So we have to move with the times. Otherwise, we become Luddites. And if you know the history of the Luddites, you know that their union didn't fare well in England when they were trying to hold back the Industrial Revolution, because technology is like time, it continues to advance forward. The key is not to be afraid of it, it is to embrace it, to learn it, and to use it as the tool for you that it is supposed to be. For our community, if we don't have skills in many of the areas, because, oh, that's the other thing. In ChatGPT, it also asks what kind of skills would those children need to have in order to be able to even take some of these courses. And you all mentioned some of them earlier, but I do want to read some of them off to you. So I'm going to tick off another list. Hopefully those of you in Facebook can listen to it again on the record, but it says digital literacy. And that was number one, digital literacy. But number two, you've all mentioned already multiple times, critical thinking and problem solving ability. That's number two on the list. Guess what number three is? Communication skills. I'm not talking how to do advanced communications through satellites. I'm talking about, hi, how are you? I have something in my mind that I want to pass through to you that I am unable to get from here to you. That's what this is talking about. Collaboration and teamwork, the ability to work with others. We're suffering from that today. Here's one that you would think Black people would master: adaptability and resilience. You have to have it. The technology is changing so fast. When I was a kid, technology changed about every 10 years. Now technology is changing in a matter of months. So we have to be able, there's an old saying, adapt or die. Number 6, and this is going to be a one that's surprising to a lot of the people who says all we need is reading, writing, and arithmetic, and that's creativity and innovation. Our children have to be creative. Some of the courses that's needed for that, and we'll get into that later, things like art. Research skills, the ability to look up information. Someone tells you something, they could tell you anything. If you don't know that, if you don't have a background in that, how do you find out whether they just fed you a bunch of poop? And we see a lot of bunch of poop being spread out in the political realm today. Emotional intelligence. And for those who don't know what emotional intelligence is, the ability to understand and manage one's emotions and navigate interpersonal relationships is critical for success in many jobs, especially those involving teamwork or customer interactions or simply interacting with other humans every day-to-day life. Number 9, leadership skills. Here's one, number 10, financial literacy. And this is understanding personal finance, budgeting, and basic economic principles. Are our children graduating with this? Because I can tell you, one of the biggest holdbacks of children getting into the military today, including the Army, is a lack of financial competency. Number 11, cultural awareness and diversity. We're living in a time where we have CEOs like Elon Musk saying that's attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And something that he says we need to be more involved in is artificial intelligence, which is what Chat GPT is. His Chat GPT is telling him and everybody else that you have to have cultural awareness and diversity in an increasingly globalized world. Cultural sensitivity and understanding of diversity are important. Encourage, it says, encourage students to learn about different cultures and perspectives. We have a deficit of that in our education system right here in the CCSD. Number 12, time management and organization. Have to get rid of CP time. I'm guilty of that myself. The ability to networking, interacting with one another, sharing what you know, asking and seeking information on what you don't know. And number 14, STEM. They have to have an awareness of STEM. And STEM is science, technology, engineering, and yes, the one that everyone dreads, math. Just two more. 15, soft skills. For those who don't know what soft skills are, such as empathy, and my sister girl Deja said that's lacking in America today is empathy. Some people call it grace if you've come from a religious background. Patience. We all, if you drive in Las Vegas, you know that we're not the most patient people. Active listening, the ability to listen. Hearing is passive. Listening is purposeful and focused. We don't listen well. It says these are highly valued. The final one in this list, remember, this is not an all-inclusive list. Industry-specific skills depending on their career interests. Students should consider acquiring industry-specific certifications or skills that are relevant to their fields. So we talked about the industries that are going to be relevant for future jobs. And now we just talked about, or I just listed some of those skills that students need to fulfill those jobs. And so I would ask you all, and especially those there in Facebook, in the education community as well, are these basic skill sets being taught in our schools today?
That was good. I agree with most. Yeah, I agree with those. Yeah, and I don't think we're definitely missing the mark on some of those things. And I know I'm a proud graduate of Rancho High School. And my first year at Howard University, I was like, oh no, wait, what? I love school, okay? Hence, I'm still in school, trying to graduate. I should be done this summer. But it was a big adjustment coming from Rancho High School to Howard University. The course load was a big adjustment. Listen, fun fact, I cried every year in math. High school, cried. My dad, I was like, Dad, you have to help me. And he did. And then college, I cried. So, and then college again, I cried in statistics. So it's a struggle. And it's not that, so I do want to make the point that math is not one of my strongest points. I just need a teacher who can really like guide me through this step by step. Like it needs to be broken down in simple layman's terms for me. But I think we do have a lot of work to do. I am optimistic. I believe that we can get there, but it does require that we have leaders in place who are willing to disrupt what we've been used to for so long. And this is not only a local issue, this is a national issue with education. We've all at one point or another gone through some type of system of education. And some people believe the way that I do, that it was designed this way for a reason. But I do believe, and I've talked to my brother Christian the other day, and he was like very optimistic, like we are in a very good position across the state of Nevada to get good people in office who are willing to disrupt what this madness that we've always had. We do this conversation about education because we are really passionate about it. It takes time to be able to prepare for a Facebook Live, and we are definitely grateful to the people who join us on Zoom in the call. We're grateful for the people who engage on Facebook, because this is a worthy conversation to have, and it is necessary. And I'm a proponent. If we cannot worry about the future of our children, I don't know what else we can think about. Like nothing else can matter until we really focus in on the education that our students are receiving and the leadership that is making the decision about what they're receiving. I don't know. Is there anything else you wanted to say is there anything else you want to talk about before I move on to another direction? Go ahead, Mr. Jerry.
Don't hear you, Jerry. Recycle your mute button, sir. Okay, Jerry, for some reason we lost the volume. Can anyone else hear Jerry, or is it just me?
I can't hear him. Maybe if he tries talking now, because I saw the mute button come up.
Okay, Jerry, try it one more time.
Are your earphones plugged in all the way?
Go find the grandchild.
How about
There
now?
we go.
There you go.
All right. So when Rodney asked me to look at what a fourth grader need in order to be prepared for the future on the education side, and that's what I focused on when I was asking ChatGPT. So now I'm thinking that once we give them the basic fundamentals to build on, then being good citizens as an adult might be another topic for the discussion. And it's not so much on the formal sitting in the classroom education and or the self-educational aspect of it, but what are some other things as in civic engagements and personal development, self-improvement, and things of that nature, but not so specific about education. There are a lot of people who are functioning illiterate as in formal education, but because of their life skills over time and what they've been exposed to and encouraged by and mentored into doing, then they do well in jobs that are still going to be around for a bit. So mainly, again, saying the educational aspect of it is focusing on the education, the jobs of the future, but then as a person of color in this country or anywhere they're going to be as an adult, of having some things, what's that going to look like? One of the things I was asking myself and some other people, my brother-in-law and sister today, was the 1900 Jerry, and then the 2000s Jerry. What am I bringing, or did I bring from 1900s that is no longer serving me in the 2000s? When Y2K came about, and now we're 24 years into the 21st century, what do I need to replace? 1900s no longer available. So I get it. Today I was throwing out some of my old bell-bottom jeans and my 1970s clothes. I can still fit them, and saying, what do I need to bring into the 2000s? And I think that we need to ask ourselves that seriously. I'm not making New Year's resolution. I'm making a whole century resolution of what do I want to be for 2000s. And part of it, again, is not really having to reflect and see what 1900 mean, that in values, ideologies, philosophy, religious beliefs, being my personal skills and how I like people and dislike people, people like me and all that. A lot of those things were anchored in me in the 1900s, and I'm not even aware of it. And I think that all of us are guilty. I see some nodding heads. Said me too. But that was the thing. Again, education, focus on education, and then beyond education, what do you need to be in order to be a good person as an adult?
So thank you for saying that, Jerry, because what I'm hoping that we'll do, I don't know if we'll do it next week, but for sure in the near future, have a part 2 to this to go a little bit more detail in some of the other skills that children need academically. Some of the things that we didn't talk about was counselors, because I put that question to Chat GPT, like, how many counselors should there be per student population? And I'm going to give you all a hint. We don't come close to having enough counselors. So if we expect our children to succeed, they have to have guidance through the process. And those 4 years of high school, those counselors are critically important. But if the counselors are not available, is there any wonder why when children get into the second half of the 11th grade, the counselor's sole mission is getting those children credit sufficient, because most of them are credit deficient, so that they can graduate. As a matter of fact, they spend so much time getting credit deficient students credit sufficient that they don't have time to counsel the new students coming in to ensure that they don't become the future credit deficient students. That's a problem. And so and I'm not going to tell you what Chat GPT said, so kind of give that as a little teaser so you come back. But Chat GPT did have some specifics. We also asked the question, should there be homework or not? We know that that is a very delicate discussion right now. And Chat GPT, even though it sort of set on the fence a little bit, but it did give us a suggestion. How many students should there be? How many teachers per student population should there be? That's another big one. You might be surprised at what Chat GPT says. So those are just some kind of teasers for you for our next segment, whenever that is, and then we'll get into more of those things. How is it a well-rounded person? One of the questions we put forth to Chat GPT was, how do you get more parental involvement? Please come back and hear what Chat GPT had to say about that.
Yeah, and just to let you know, Mr. Rodney, Pastor West said that you hit the nail on the head, that the counselor and the parent relationship plays a major role. So we have some agreements out there in our Facebook Live chat. Thank you so much. We've hit 7:30. We went a little bit more today because we started a little bit late. We enjoy, look, we could talk about education all day, and then we don't even, to me, we still, there's like Mr. Rodney was saying, there's still more that we can talk about. But we're going to go ahead and end our conversation today. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, my name is Kamilah Bywaters. I'm running for the Board of School Trustees for District E. And I put my newsletter. If you haven't had a chance to join my newsletter, you can join my newsletter, but I'm gonna post it in the chat again, and then let Mr. Jerry have his comments.
I don't want to stop talking. Do you have to? You can let everybody who wants to go, and the rest, if anybody else wants to stay talking.
Yeah.
Or you got to go. You might have to go. I
So
don't know.
what we're gonna do when once we get done with the live, we're still gonna we're still be on the Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Like I said, we can talk for hours about education.
I can give you another 30 minutes, a good 30 minutes. Okay.
So thank you, everyone. Shaquilla, do you have any last thoughts? The General, you have anything you all wanted to say before we close out?
Get out and vote for the right person. Kamilah Bywaters.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not in your district, so, you know.
It's okay. You can bring people to my district. Let your friends know.
I agree with you,
Running.
Shaquilla. I agree with you, Shaquilla. We must vote for the right person to represent our children and their needs. The discussion tonight was great. It was very important because a lot of people aren't aware of all of those things listed. And I don't even know if we touched a third of the things on that list, but we're not aware of the things on that list that states these are the things that our children will need for their future. Are they teaching those things in school? Most not, if even half. And to know that there's a candidate that's aware of the things that our children need and is looking into it is very important. So pretty much that is my statement. And I think we should consider that and focus on that. Where are our children and what are they learning? Are they prepared for their future?
And Sister Kamilah, I'm gonna just throw this in.
Yeah.
What other candidate, whether currently serving or first time running, is opening themselves up to you every week, giving you an opportunity to engage with her every week for at least an hour every week? We're talking about, these are not easy topics that we're talking about. These are not the softball issues. This is the in-depth conversation on the most important thing in our lives, and that's our children. Kamilah Bywaters is giving us all an opportunity to engage with her. And she has said that once she's elected, she will still do things like this so that it's not her making the decisions. It is her speaking for her constituents that she will be invested in, and didn't just start learning right before the election. She is a product of the school district. Her father was an educator in the school district. I don't know whether that was a good thing or not when she was in high school, but that's a reality. It's in the blood. She is an educator, has worked in the school system, and she's currently working on her doctorate to further her understanding of education. So she has knowledge through the blood, through her father. She has knowledge through personal experience of attending in the school district herself. Her children currently are in the school district, the same school district. She's working in the school district. So she is coming at it from a multifaceted approach, unlike any other person that may be currently serving or that's running to serve. We have a unique quantity in Miss Kamilah Bywaters, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here, because no one else is having a conversation on, are we actually teaching and preparing our children for their future? No one else is having that conversation. Thank you for allowing me to be a part, Kamilah, and I wish you much success in this endeavor, because I know it's something that you don't take lightly.
Absolutely. I appreciate you all are going to bring me to tears early because I'm looking forward to winning this race. The incumbent has been in the seat for 8 years. So we have a lot of work to do. I'm not taking this race lightly. One thing that is important for me to say is that I absolutely love humanity. I love our students. I love their families. I love all of our staff and employees who work within schools. And it is really important to me that this space is provided so that, like Mr. Rodney said, that the community can be heard. I think I showed a perfect example of, listening. Like, remember we had a conversation about, I wanted to ban a book because it just made me so mad they were saying the N-word all over the place. And after listening, excuse me, to my friends and people who were going, debating about the topic, they were like, Kamilah, if you do this for yourself, everyone's going to jump on the bandwagon. So what that shows you is that I'm a person who, I may not agree with you, I may not have the same idea that you have, but I'm a person who listens, looks at every side, and then will make an informed decision based off of all the information that has gathered, based off of people checking me and saying, Kamilah, you need to think again about what you're saying. I appreciate critical feedback. And without it, I would not be the person that I am today. I have not been, my parents didn't just let me do whatever I wanted. My professors, my PhD professor, she checks me. She's like, wait a second, you're working on your PhD and running a campaign? I was like, yes, and I'm doing both. So I get checked all the time. And I appreciate that because that shows that people really care about me, and they know that when they're saying something to me, it's not only investing in me, it's investing in the community that I love and I dearly serve. If you want to, please sign up for my newsletter. I put it in the chat. Also, the MLK parade is coming up, and I know there's so many people, so many campaigns and organizations that you can walk with. If you have space and you have time and you can volunteer with me to walk with me in the parade, I would love for you to do that. If you're able, it's no pressure, nothing like that. You can walk with whoever you're going to walk with. But if you're able to volunteer with me, please let me know. You can provide your information to me in the chat. If you want to learn more about my campaign, you can look for me, CamilahForNevadans.com. You can email me, you can call me, you can hit me up on social media. If you have a subject matter that you want us to talk about, then just let us know. We'll talk about that as well on Facebook. Again, my name is Kamilah Bywaters. I'm running for the Board of School Trustees for District E, and I look forward to having another conversation next week and for the rest of the year. I plan to do this for the rest of the year. Hopefully, Mr. Rodney and the general don't get tired of me. But I plan to do this. You know, to me, this is the beginning of my journey as an elected official. I plan to be doing this forever. So we'll have these conversations ongoing forever. And if you would like to join, just, you can do so. You can join our Zoom and be a part of the conversation. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you next time. Any last words before we go? All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next Tuesday. Have a wonderful Tuesday.